Are you ready to go back to an America where kids played outside until the streetlights came on? Doors were always unlocked, and 5 cents bought a whole bag of candy. It was a time of strong family values, hard work, and simple joys that are hard to find today. Today we're going to explore 100 things from 1950s America that we've completely forgotten. Things that might make you smile, tear up a little, or whisper, "That's right, I remember that." Outdoor living. The 1950s were an era when outdoor living was a priority. Growing up in that decade meant spending most of your day playing outside. Kids were constantly active, doing simple but fun physical activities like riding bikes, playing team sports, and participating in various street games. Climbing trees was also a key part of those daily adventures. Unlike today, 1950s children lived most of their lives outdoors. Simple games like red light, green light didn't require complex equipment, but kept them busy and happy. It was incredible freedom where friendships were built on the sidewalk, reinforcing the traditional values of physical activity and hard work. The bike sound. Do you remember that signature sound? That satisfying purr that happened when you clipped a baseball card to your bike spokes and sped down the hill? That cheap baseball card turned a regular bike into a powerful motorcycle, announcing your presence in the neighborhood. This simple trick wasn't just a prank, it was the sonic signature of 1950s childhood. It was tied to those free rides and explorations without constant adult supervision. The creativity in making that sound reflects the do-it-yourself nature of the era, where fun came from simple, available things. Simple toys. Unlike today's complex devices, you grew up with toys that genuinely sparked creativity and imagination. Simple yet invaluable toys were treasured, like hula hoops, a simple plastic circle requiring skill. Lincoln logs, wooden model blocks for building imaginary structures. Play-Doh, molding clay for free manipulation. And Mr. Potato Head. These toys didn't play themselves, they required active participation from the mind and hands. They reinforced the traditional values of creativity and labor, teaching children to enjoy fun through simplicity and creating their own worlds of entertainment. Board games. When the weather kept you indoors, or during cozy family evenings, board games dominated entertainment. Games like Scrabble, the word challenge, Yahtzee, the dice game, and Sorry were extremely popular. They weren't just for fun, they were a means of family bonding, creating warm and enjoyable moments. Children also loved playing card games, especially Old Maid. These activities often took place at the dining table or in the living room, becoming a cherished part of family values. This shared entertainment required direct interaction, unlike the individual screens of modern society. The beloved wagon. If you grew up in the 1950s America, you surely owned, or at least dreamed of, a bright red radio flyer wagon. This wagon was more than a toy. It was the neighborhood kid's multi-purpose transport. Having a wagon made chores like collecting bottles or delivering newspapers easier, reinforcing early labor values for children. But the biggest joy was using it to pull friends around, turning every street into an adventure. It was a symbol of small independence, an essential item helping children explore the world safely and fun. Metal roller skates. Another essential four-wheeled item in any active kid's closet was metal roller skates. The unique thing about these skates was that they came with a small key to adjust and fasten them onto your regular shoes. This item created a signature rattle as you rolled down the sidewalk and was the source of countless minor injuries. You could easily spot the owners of these skates by looking for the kids with scraped knees in the neighborhood. Though risky, this was a popular way for children to enjoy outdoor life, showing the courage and energy of 1950s childhood, keeping them active and happy. Western toys. TV westerns dominated the small screen in the 1950s. This was the genre every boy watched. The fandom for cowboys like the Lone Ranger or characters from Gunsmoke quickly translated into outdoor role-playing games. Almost every kid had a holster and a cap gun to play cowboys and Indians or cops and robbers. This was the most common way to act out their favorite cowboy impressions. Coonskin caps. If they weren't cowboys, 1950s American kids were swept up in a totally different craze. After watching the famous Disney miniseries about Davy Crockett, they started wearing the distinctive coonskin caps. This cap, with its long tail, symbolized the frontier spirit. Kids everywhere wore this hat and started exploring the wild frontier right in their own neighborhood. The penny candy. The simple joy of visiting the corner store was buying lots of candy with just a few pennies. Popular 1950s candies included chewy Charleston Chews, famous bazooka gum, minty Necco wafers, sweet Bitto honey, fiery atomic fireballs, root beer barrel candies, and candy buttons. The best part? Most of them cost just 1 penny. Being able to buy so much candy with so little money is a cherished childhood memory tied to outdoor activities and the small financial independence of kids back then. Fake candy. A forgotten habit of that era was the popularity of fake cigarette candies and buying coconut cigarettes. While this idea seems strange and inappropriate today, in the 1950s, it was just part of role-playing. Kids often pretended to smoke those candy cigarettes as a way to imitate adults. This reflects a different cultural environment at the time, where the line between toys and adult items wasn't as clearly defined as it is now. Which toy or penny candy memory is the most vivid for you? Share it with us in the comments. 3D comics. Rainy days were prime time for kids to spend time reading. The biggest event in the world of paper entertainment was when comic books switched to 3D format in the 1950s. The famous Mighty Mouse comic even came bundled with a pair of special space glasses. Kids loved the magical effect of wearing those glasses, helping them discover a world of illusion, like the magic was truly leaping off the pages. This was a small technological innovation that brought great joy, turning reading into a vivid experience and a nostalgic memory of the simplicity of entertainment back then. Milk delivery. Remember the home milk delivery service? The milkman often used a cart, sometimes even horse-drawn, bringing a distinctive sound, the clip-clop of hooves and the clinking of glass bottles as he walked up neighborhood doorsteps. This was great convenience, helping mothers who were often home not worry about running out of milk. Sometimes, as a surprise treat, you might even find a cold bottle of chocolate milk in the box. This service demonstrated the closeness and personalization of community service back then, a person-to-person interaction lost in modern society. The Fluffernutter sandwich. Anyone who grew up in the 50s remembers this essential lunch item, the Fluffernutter sandwich. It was the embodiment of simplicity and sweetness. The recipe was incredibly basic: 2 slices of bread layered thickly with creamy peanut butter and a fluffy layer of marshmallow fluff. Sometimes, for extra flavor and nutrition, thin slices of banana would be added in between. It was basically legal candy disguised as lunch, providing quick energy for kids after long hours of playing outdoors. This distinctive taste of marshmallow and peanut butter is a wonderful culinary memory that later generations have completely forgotten. The Good Humor Truck. Summer in the 50s had an unmistakable soundtrack, the sound of the ice cream truck getting closer. Chances are, it was the legendary Good Humor Truck. Kids in the neighborhood would concentrate intensely, listening closely for the familiar bell or music. As soon as the sound was loud enough, every child would sprint inside to ask Mom for spare change. The arrival of the ice cream truck was a social event, marking the beginning of hot summer days. It represents the simple, unpretentious joy of childhood, a moment that evokes intense nostalgia for a time when entertainment only required a small truck and a few pennies. Drive-in restaurants. With the booming car culture, drive-in restaurants were the best place to hang out. When the weather was warm, you just drove into the lot. Waitresses, called car hops, often swiftly roller-skated around the parking lot to deliver food. They brought classics like hot cheeseburgers, crispy golden fries, and thick, creamy milkshakes. For teenagers, these drive-ins were the perfect spot to meet friends, go on dates, and listen to the jukebox. It was a symbol of 1950s freedom and social style. The rotary phone and party line. Remember the rotary phone, the only kind of telephone you had in the house? Instead of punching numbers, you had to use your finger to dial each number one by one, patiently waiting for the dial to return to its starting position. But what really surprises the younger generation today is the concept of the party line, meaning you shared a phone line with your neighbors. If you picked up the phone to make a call and heard them talking, you had to hang up and patiently wait your turn. This was a common lack of privacy, but it also encouraged respect between neighbors, part of the simplicity and community sharing that modern society has forgotten. The phone book. Today, if you need a phone number, you just ask your smartphone. But in the 1950s, if you wanted to call a business or an acquaintance, you had a manual job, flipping through a fixed stack of telephone directories. These directories were a necessity, often placed near the only phone in the house. Finding a number was a time-consuming process, requiring patience and intense focus. That was a lesson in morality and patience that modern life has eliminated. The memory of the paper smell and the sound of flipping directory pages is a nostalgic detail that those who grew up in that era still clearly remember. Cookie-cutter parents. 1950s family life often followed a certain pattern, commonly called the cookie-cutter model. The standard model was, Mom stayed home to raise the kids, do housework, and cook dinner. Her role was to ensure everything in the house was neat and tidy. Conversely, Dad would drive the family's single car to work. This is how most households operated throughout that decade, emphasizing the traditional values of family and specialized labor. This model, although different from today, represents the stability and security that many older people are nostalgic for now. Closed Sundays. This is almost impossible today. On Sundays, in small towns and cities across the country, stores along Main Street were closed. This tradition was intended to allow everyone to attend church services and have a proper day of rest, reinforcing religious and family values. The result was, if you suddenly ran out of a necessity, like milk, you couldn't drive to the store. Instead, the most common action was to knock on a neighbor's door to borrow it. Black and white TV. Every Sunday night was an unmissable family ritual. Your whole family would gather on the sofa, eyes fixed on your parents' brand new black and white TV. After dinner, everyone would settle in, ready for an hour of entertainment watching The Ed Sullivan Show. It was a collective event, reinforcing family values. Other popular shows everyone loved included the comedy I Love Lucy, the children's program Howdy Doody, and the beloved Western Gunsmoke. Watching TV back then was a shared experience, very different from the individual viewing of today, and is a warm, nostalgic memory of nights spent together. Which of these TV shows was your family's favorite? Tell us the TV show you remember most from that time. The TV sign-off. One thing today's younger generation can hardly imagine is that TV channels used to end programming late at night. When the clock struck late, channels would stop broadcasting instead of operating 24/7 like they do now. This was called the sign-off. Some channels formally concluded programming by playing the Star-Spangled Banner, the U.S. national anthem. This event signaled that it was time for bed and was part of the distinctive quietness of the 50s. It's a forgotten habit that shows the difference in technology and media culture compared to the present, bringing a nostalgic feeling for a time when everything had clear hours. Drive-in movie theaters. The best and most exciting way to watch a movie back then was at the drive-in theater. It was the perfect family outing. You just drove in, parked, and then either grabbed a small speaker hanging by the window or tuned the car radio to hear the sound. You could enjoy great movies all summer long. Drive-ins were important social hubs. When teenagers started driving, these drive-ins, along with drive-in restaurants, became the perfect place to go on dates and hang out with friends. The Transistor Radio. The transistor radio was a revolutionary technological advancement at the time, and it was something every kid wanted. These small, portable radios allowed you to take music everywhere you went. With the increasing popularity of rock and roll music, which Elvis Presley helped start the craze, these devices were everywhere in the 1950s, from bedrooms to barbershops. It represented personal freedom in enjoying music, and was a symbol of small but influential technological innovation. Mimeograph purple ink. If you were in school in the 50s, you definitely remember this. When you were in school, Paper copies were made using the mimeograph machine. Not only did it produce a unique shade of purple ink, but this printer also had a distinctive smell that almost everyone loved. Every time you received a copy, this sweet ink smell was a signal for a new assignment or announcement. The memory of this scent is one of the most specific and emotionally evocative things remembered by those who grew up during this period, tied to school afternoons. Reading weekly readers. Do you remember reading the Weekly Readers publication in school? This was a concise, simple, but very important publication designed to give school-age children awareness of what was happening in the world. These publications were often distributed on Friday afternoons, helping kids stay connected to world news and develop reading habits. It demonstrated a commitment to the traditional values of education and knowledge of the era. The perfect superstar. Marilyn Monroe was considered the most glamorous and captivating girl you had ever seen. From her red blonde wavy hair to her sensual figure, she was the epitome of 1950s perfection. Her image represented the ideal beauty and romance of the period, mentioned in pop culture and advertising. She is a cultural icon that many feel nostalgic for, regarding that unpretentious beauty and glamour. The king of rock and roll. In contrast to Marilyn's classic beauty, Elvis Presley brought the necessary rebellion. He was a phenomenon, and he helped start the rock and roll craze. His iconic pompadour haircut is an unmistakable image. Elvis didn't just change how people listened to music. He changed the fashion and dance styles of teenagers, creating a new cultural wave. He is an indispensable part of this decade, representing the youthful, energetic spirit and a significant figure in the era of nostalgia. The Mickey Mouse Club. Disney's legendary television series, The Mickey Mouse Club, delighted millions of children in the US since its debut on ABC in 1955. This one-hour variety show aired on weekday afternoons and featured a cast of child performers called Mouseketeers, including famous members like Annette Funicello, Bobby Burgess, and Cubby O'Brien. This was an important after-school rendezvous for every kid, creating a loyal audience community. Saddle shoes. Almost everyone who grew up in the 50s owned at least one pair of classic saddle shoes, usually in black and white. They were also a symbol of neatness and social convention at the time. The most important thing was to keep them polished. The polishing was done so carefully that you could almost see a reflection in them. Saddle shoes were incredibly versatile. They were the perfect accessory for the poodle skirt, but also looked great paired with jeans. The poodle skirt. The poodle skirt is an undeniable fashion icon of young women in the 1950s. This skirt was distinctive, with its colorful, flared style, and usually reached just below the knee. They were typically made of felt fabric. The name came from the fact that the skirt was often decorated with an image of a poodle dog, either embroidered or appliqued. The poodle skirt is associated with sock hops and the era's emerging dances. Seeing this skirt, older folks immediately recall the playful and feminine style of the post-war period. Still with us on this nostalgic journey? Drop a yes in the comments so we know you're enjoying it. The soda fountain. Do you remember your Friday night date spot or hangout? It was the local soda fountain. These counter-style eateries were social centers, serving refreshments, ice cream, and often featuring a jukebox in the corner. The jukebox was key in spreading the emerging rock and roll music, thanks to Elvis Presley. For teenagers, this was the perfect place to socialize, meet friends, or go on dates. The soda fountain represented a simple, inexpensive form of entertainment and reinforced the traditional values of community and direct interaction, entirely different from today's online communication. Sock hops parties. Sock hops was the name for high school dances. The name came from an interesting fact. Teenagers would take off their shoes and dance only in their socks to protect the gymnasium floor from scuffs. This was part of the school culture at the time, combining fun entertainment with respect for shared property, the gym floor. These dances were the main venue for teens to socialize, listen to new music, and practice dance steps. Sock hops paved the way for the introduction of several popular dances, becoming a signature memory of 1950s teenage life. Popular dances. Sock hops paved the way for a variety of popular dances that kept the 50s youth energetic and excited. Many new dances emerged in those gymnasiums, including the hand jive, the stroll, and the box step. However, the most famous among them must be the twist. They were a form of expression for youthful energy and freedom, an indispensable part of the rock and roll craze initiated by Elvis Presley and others. Obesity Massager. This is one of the strange and forgotten items of the 50s. Long before modern exercise machines like the elliptical existed, some women tried using slimming devices by wrapping parts of their bodies around a belt. This device promised to shake off the fat just by vibrating the body. Of course, it didn't work. Their appeal quickly faded, and they were forgotten by the end of the decade. Catalog shopping. A large and popular form of shopping in the 1950s was ordering by mail through catalogs. Large department stores like Sears, JCPenney, and Montgomery Ward all offered catalogs for every season. However, none were as popular as the Christmas catalog. Kids across the country would spend hours flipping through the pages, circling and marking the toys and gifts they desired, creating their Christmas lists. This was part of family values and holiday tradition, a form of shopping the younger generation no longer knows. Sewing at home. Think back to the image of our mothers. Many of them frequently sewed and made clothes for their children to wear. The Singer sewing machine was an essential item in many 1950s homes. Why? Because back then we had fewer shopping options in stores, and, most importantly, making clothes yourself was much cheaper than buying them. You could see many mothers bent over the sewing machine, carefully following fabric patterns to create new dresses or a pair of shorts for the summer. That was a wonderful display of the labor value and resourcefulness of housewives of that period, a skill that has been forgotten in the modern era. S&H Green Stamps. S&H Green Stamps was a popular loyalty reward system. They weren't cash, but stamp points given after shopping at certain stores. These stamps had different values, from 1 to 50 points. Families would collect them and carefully paste them into a small booklet. Once the booklet was filled, you could exchange them for merchandise in the S&H catalog or at redemption centers. This entire collection and exchange process was a collective family activity, teaching about patience and saving, reinforcing memories of traditional shopping methods back then, a form of point accumulation completely unrelated to technology. Gold bond stamps. Similar to green stamps, gold bond stamps were also a highly favored loyalty program, often found at grocery chains and service stations. After making a purchase, you would receive these tiny stamps, and the goal was to collect enough to fill a book. The most memorable part for kids was their role in this. They loved helping mom lick and paste the stamps into the booklet after every grocery trip. This manual activity was a small family tradition, a way for children to participate in adult tasks. The Fuller Brush Man. Do you remember the Fuller Brush Man? This was an iconic figure of the 50s who would go door to door selling high-quality cleaning supplies. Because mothers were often home, according to the traditional family model, these salesmen would take time to chat and even demonstrate the brush's effectiveness by helping the housewives clean a little. This personal and friendly sales tactic made the Fuller Brush Man a part of everyday life. Encyclopedia Britannica sales. Another big item sold door to door was the famous Encyclopedia Britannica set. These essential knowledge books were considered a significant investment in family education. Because they were very expensive, many households paid for them through smaller installment payments over a long period. This demonstrated the traditional value of knowledge. However, there was one funny thing. Just as you were about to pay off the last installment, a new edition would be released, and you'd see the friendly Encyclopedia Britannica salesman driving down the street again. Katie Keene comics. For girls, Katie Keene was a phenomenon. This comic book was published by Archie Comics in the 50s, featuring a main character who called herself the Pin-Up and Fashion Queen. Katie Keene was famous not just for the story, but also for the paper dolls often included in the comic. The coolest thing was how the magazine interacted with readers. Fans were invited to design their own fashion patterns, which they would then send in. The best designs would be published in subsequent issues. This was a unique form of interaction, encouraging creativity and showing how media built community back then. Thank you for watching our video. If you enjoyed it, don't hesitate to hit the like button below. If there's anything we can improve, take a moment to leave a comment. We're always looking to get better. Thanks so much. Christmas decorations. The 1950s Christmas season had its own special characteristics. An indispensable tradition was covering the Christmas tree with tinsel. Carefully hanging each strand of sparkling tinsel onto the branches was a favorite family activity. There is something about the combination of the glistening tinsel, the old model train sets, and the simple sight of those wooden sleds of that era that can truly transport us back to sweet memories. Window displays. Another forgotten Christmas tradition was the ritual of stopping by downtown department stores just to see the elaborate window displays. Large stores invested heavily in these displays, often using moving models or dazzling lights to tell a story. This was a popular way for department stores back then to attract customers and inspire the festive shopping spirit. For families, this was an important outing, creating wonderful Christmas memories where everyone admired the creativity of others and reinforced family values. Doctor House Calls. In the 1950s, a forgotten reality was that doctors still maintained the service of house calls to examine patients. Although this practice peaked in the 1930s, it remained common until the 50s, especially in smaller towns. The local doctor would come right to your home to care for the sick person and prescribe medicine. This demonstrated a much more personal and close relationship between the doctor and patient compared to the modern healthcare system. The polio vaccine. A crucial medical milestone unforgettable in the 50s was the development of the polio vaccine. Polio was a terrible fear, crippling nearly 35,000 children annually. The vaccine's development in 1955 led to mass vaccination for millions of American children. This brought immense relief and ended the horrific fear of public gatherings, especially during the summer months. This event completely changed how families experienced summer and was a victory for science reinforcing traditional values of family protection. Ducktail and flat-top haircuts. Remember the most popular haircuts at the local barbershop? You could choose the classic flat top or the more rebellious ducktail style. The barbershop wasn't just for grooming, it was also a social hub where people often listened to the news or ongoing sports events. The reason was that the transistor radio, an item every kid wanted, was usually playing. While you were getting your hair cut, you could also listen to rock and roll music or the latest news. The first bicycle. The Western Flyer bike, sold at Western Auto, is a classic American icon. For many children across the US, this was their first bicycle. This bike was known for being well-made, but also affordable. Because of these traits, the Western Flyer became the perfect gift to wake up to on Christmas morning. Weekend hobbies. Stopping by the hobby shop on Saturday morning was a popular tradition in the 1950s. These stores were creative heavens. Here, children of all ages could find everything to keep them busy on the weekend, from games, Lionel train models to piles of model kits and balsa wood airplanes. These hobbies encourage skill and imagination, reinforcing the traditional values of craftsmanship and personal creativity. Annual class photos. The annual class photo was always a memorable moment during school years. That's when you had to line up side by side with your friends, with the teacher often standing solemnly right next to the group. These photos encapsulated a school year and are an indispensable part of preserved memorabilia. There are surely many of these class photos mixed in with other dusty souvenirs tucked away in boxes, just waiting to be reminisced over. The memory of the orderly arrangement and the faces of old friends always brings a deep sense of nostalgia. Organized outdoor games. Keeping kids busy playing outside was easy in the 1950s. Since children lived most of their lives outdoors, they created their own games with rules. Girls loved playing double dutch or hopscotch, while boys might play kick the can. Simple games like red light, green light kept them active and happy. These games didn't need complex equipment, just friends and open space, demonstrating the traditional value of physical activity and social interaction.
Third,
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this journey down memory lane, don't forget to like this video and share it with friends from your generation so you can reminisce together. And a big thank you for the support from our loyal Patreon patrons. We'll see you in the next video.